The opinions and views expressed in the following program are those of the speakers and the host, and do not necessarily reflect those of Yoakley Scott Corporation and your sports network.
Yeah, I've been closer to Jesus before, so can you help me out? Oh, can you help me out? Am I on my own? Am I on my own? But can you help me out? Am I on my own? Am I on my own? Or can you help me out? Can you help me out? I've been scared to look in my soul. I've been afraid I would follow the road. Yeah, afraid of the things I've been told.
Hello, everybody. Welcome into a Wednesday episode of Running Point on ysnlive.com, brought to you by our good friends up in that top right corner, Greenwood Chevrolet in Austin Town. They go the extra mile for you. We try to do the same on this show every single day. And a Wednesday in the fall sports season would not be the same without our golf guru from Mill Creek Metro Parks, Brian Tolnar, our golf guru. Brian, welcome back into the fold. It has been way too long, buddy.
Well, thanks for having me back. I'm excited to be here. It's been a long spring, long summer, and now that we're kicking in the fall and the fall sports and high gear, super excited to be with you guys again and look forward to running this through the winter.
Scotty Mincher down there, he's on for Wednesdays as well, and we'll have our segment with Scotty in the second half of the show, see what's on his mind as well. Brian, it has been a very busy summer for Mill Creek, and there's a lot of exciting things in the works. I want you to just kind of recap what your summer has looked like and all the craziness that's been going down there at Mill Creek Park.
Well, we've had some major construction going on that's been in our department for golf and recreation. Number one, the rec center down at the Wick Recreation area. We're putting in some offices. There'll be a food and beverage component, a little banquet room, some locker rooms, some much needed improvements down there that'll basically make that the hub of recreation for the Metro Park. So we're excited about that. We really just took the old warming house where the ice rink used to be, that now we have that deck hockey rink, and we're converting that into a rec center as opposed to being a maintenance center, which it had been for about 30 some years. So to be able to flip that over, have new bathrooms, have our rec park offices in there, we'll have a little team shop, we'll have a food, beverage, and all that stuff in there, is only going to exemplify that area that really drives a lot of recreation. We do our flag football, we do our cheerleading, we do baseball, deck hockey, you name it, our par 3 course, the Morley Concert Pavilion, the tennis courts are there, and volleyball, sand volleyball, do youth soccer. So it's a sort of a catch-all for every recreation opportunity we have here at the Metro Parks. But to be able to have that there to really elevate that property, we're super excited about that. And then the other is our indoor player golf development center, which is in the upstairs of the field house, which we took the old long forgot upstairs, and we've basically gutted that out, and we're putting in 3 simulator bays to be able to bring golf to you for 12 months out of the year, which we're super excited about. That'll happen sometime in hopefully November if construction falls in on time, somewhere in that time frame. We'll have 3 TrackMan bays. We'll have a Callaway club fitting studio. We'll have a golf club repair room up there, as well as an indoor putting green. And then our office will be up there along with a lot of the Donald Ross historical facts and materials that we have here at the golf course that we've been able to save throughout the course of the year. So we'll be able to showcase those up there, as well as the teams that play at Mill Creek. We've got 9 high school teams that play out of here and 2 collegiate with the men's and women's program of Youngstown State. And then we also hosted this past year the PAC championship, the men's and women's Division III conference championship. So, they're excited to come back next year. So it gives us more opportunities to showcase the Metro Parks golf wing of the recreation and golf department. So we're excited about that. And we're excited about having 12 months of golf. So the pro shop will stay open 12 months going forward. The food vendor that we have in there will go to 12 months as opposed to 8. So it's nice to have them. The building will be heated and cooled That means the water doesn't have to be shut off like it has been the past couple of years. And it'll be nice to have an office again. As you can see, I'm in my superintendent's office. I kind of been bouncing between here and the Metro Parks farm and then our rec area as well. So that's been a challenge, but our staff has responded with that. Haven't skipped a beat all year. We're super excited. We've got the Greatest Golf for the Valley coming up on Friday. We finished up the AJGA, the Nota Begay, the drive, chip, and putt. We've done just about everything without a hitch this year. And then we're going into what we call our outing season. And then our Youngstown State Roseanne Schwartz Invitational coming up in September. So, we'll cap the year off with our PGA Hope in October and the first week of November, and then hopefully be able to parlay that into the grand opening of the upstairs sometime in the upcoming weeks beyond that.
When you talk about the Player Development Center, I think one of the big things I imagine it will enhance is the lessons that you guys offer at Mill Creek, and the coaching that you guys offer is, we know that fills up really quick. What is that going to do to enhance the lessons that you're able to give at Mill Creek Golf Course?
Well, it gives us the opportunity to be, 12 months of a golf operation where you can run those clinics and the ladies golf schools and the camps and the junior programs. And one of the things that we've talked about too is like PGA Junior League. We've got some other facilities that have the same equipment that we do, and you can actually play one another cross facilities at our facility. We can have a match with somebody and never leave the upstairs of the Metro Parks. So it saves some families some travel time, and it gives kids an opportunity to play. It gives high school teams opportunities to play and opportunities to take lessons during the off season where, traditionally in Ohio, once you get past Thanksgiving and that first week of December, you really put the clubs away. So now it gives you the opportunity to be able to keep swinging the clubs in December, January, and February. And then hopefully, like we had this year, a good March where everybody's out playing. So it gives you 12 months of opportunities. It gives you 12 months of teaching opportunities. And it also gives you 12 months of being able to fit somebody. You don't have to cancel a demo day. You can move it upstairs. You don't have to cancel a league. The guys can go upstairs in the summertime. So it creates so many opportunities. And, one of the things that, being on a couple committees at the national level for the PGA of America that we've learned in Chicago in the spring and February was there's 30 plus million playing golf right now. And our game on the green grass side has grown 2 million to about 15 million. So the other 15 million that are playing don't play green grass golf. They play top golf. They play indoors. They play simulators. They play anything that has to do with golf, not on green grass. So being able to have that other component, you open your doors to a whole different customer demographic for the folks that just want to come in, have a couple beers and go swing the clubs for about an hour and, maybe watch a game and have fun. So it's nice being able to have that opportunity. And it's nice being able to bring a 15 million segment of people that play together with another 15 million segment to play. And if you can get crossover on either side, you've done very, very well. So if we get somebody that doesn't play green grass, that now plays green grass because they use the upstairs, it gives them the opportunity to, play at our facility, hit balls at our facility, buy merchandise at our facility, and then have the opportunity to eat and drink downstairs. So we're, super excited about just the full array of what you get with an indoor golfing facility beyond the teaching, the leagues, and the open play that we'll hope to see here come November.
It's good for everyone except the wives that lose their husbands to golf in the summer. Now they're going to lose them 365 days a year. They're like, oh, great. We are here to also talk about high school golf. It has started. There has been, plenty of meets already in the first week of the season. For those of people that are new to, Mill Creek and new to the golf scene in the area, you said 9 high schools call Mill Creek home. What 9 high schools do you host at Mill Creek for the home course?
We've got boys and girls teams from Boardman, Camfield, Cardinal Mooney, Poland, South Range, and trying to think of who else we got in there, but they cover just about everybody that plays here. I know Camfield High School has their boys and girls high school invitational next week, and then that follows up with Cardinal Mooney's high school invitational on Friday. So to be able to give kids the opportunity to play 18-hole venues, which will very much prepare them for the districts in the state when you have to play 18 holes, very different than playing a 9-hole match that they do during the course of the season. So there's so many more high school invitationals now, so many more opportunities to play 18 holes. And we have a ton of them here with the high schools that we have. And, we're fortunate. We have a facility that does host a lot of high school athletics, a lot of junior golf, a lot of collegiate golf. but we're blessed with having some great coaches. They all do a wonderful job in scheduling, because we have about 41, 42 leagues that play here during the week, between anywhere in the morning and then especially between that 3 and 6:30 hour. So juggling, those home and away scheduling dates can be a challenge at times, but we have a lot of folks they'll do stuff before the school year starts, before that 3 o'clock window. And then a lot will do some stuff in the fall when our leagues start to die down and they go into banquet season come end of September. So, I give it to the coaches for, giving us the ability to host as many teams as we do, to be able to host the amount of tournaments that we do for the 18-hole invitationals, and their ability to schedule around our leagues and our busy time. So, hats off to, the coaches and the staffs at those high schools that I mentioned. They've done a wonderful job in working with us over the past 9 years that I've been here.
These student athletes, they've definitely been busy all summer working on their golf. And even though it hasn't been high school, they've been golfing all summer. What kind of things in the first week back with your high school team are these kind of kids going through when they're kind of, like you said, they've been golfing, but now they're golfing in the high school setting? Is there anything different about getting back with your team and golfing in that high school setting that they have to kind of get used to in the first couple of weeks of the season?
Well, I think first and foremost, your juniors and seniors, your upperclassmen, certainly have a very good grasp on what they're doing, because they've had the opportunity to play 3-4 years going into their senior year. And I think most of them nowadays, with the amount of, we host a number of junior tournaments, they all participate in those, especially the ones that are out of Mill Creek. We host the Notabegay State and Regional. We host an AJGA. We host Northern Ohio PGA at the junior, the pups level, the Futures Tour level, and the collegiate level. So they've all had opportunities to play their home course in tournament competition. So I think, as a junior and senior, you see that more. They're more suited, more comfortable as the first couple weeks of maybe tryouts and knowing that you have a spot on the team, that you've been with the team 2 or 3 years. Now, the opposite applies with when you come to the freshmen, or maybe some sophomores that didn't have the opportunity to make the team as a freshman. It's very eye-opening. And, I say the biggest thing for a freshman coming from 8th grade into that, high school season for the first year of, you got to pace yourself, and you really got to work on your short game. 50 to 100 yards and in, if you're, good with the wedges and you can get it up and down and you can chip and putt well, you're going to do well at the high school level, because that's where you're going to save all the shots. So, getting used to playing the other courses that your league participates in and where your away matches are, I think, are vitally important. So, we always used to do, when I was in high school, in the course of the summer, we always tried to play the courses that we knew were going to be the away courses in that rotation, whether it be your league or non-league play. We tried to play them through the course of the summer 2-3 times. We would go over there as upperclassmen. We'd always try to bring the underclassmen with us. Not so much freshmen, because you don't know who the freshmen are at that point for the most part, but your sophomores, your juniors and seniors, if they have the opportunity to travel together and play some tournament golf over the summer, you really create that bond and that the amount of teamwork together, where the freshmen just certainly aren't there just because they're new and they're fresh to the whole, high school golf routine. But if you can get a couple kids 8th grade that are coming up as a freshman and do that play those away courses, you're going to have a big advantage going into the fall. And I think, being able to play in conditions that aren't what you played in all summer. We talked about this at the end of last year. You've got weather conditions when you get into districts and in your state tournament. Some years at the state tournament, it's snowing down there in Columbus. So, you got to be prepared for the elements. The ball's not going to fly quite as far. You got to know what your yardages are. The ground's a lot softer, so it's very different on hitting those pitch shots into greens. You got to play shots that are bump and run a little bit more, as opposed to flying them there, because the ball is just not going to release. And, putting, when the conditions are a little bit cooler, tends to be a little bit slower. So I think the upper classmen certainly have that advantage, because they've been there and they've done that and they know that in the past. And that's where the hurdles are for the freshmen and sophomores, getting to participate when the chips are down as a freshman, sophomore, in your first match, in your first couple match. It takes a match or two to get under your belt, to calm your nerves and be prepared for what you're going to see the rest of the year. So I think if you category, either of them, I think obviously the upperclassmen have a super advantage, and that's in any level, whether it's high school, whether it's collegiate, because they've been around, they've played those courses. But if you have a team where y'all travel and y'all get along together, I think you have a very big advantage in making those freshmen and sophomores be able to jump over those hurdles a little bit better.
We are very excited for the high school golf season, just a week underway, and we have a lot of great tournaments coming up and a lot of great golfers that are going to have great seasons. We have a reigning state champion in Rocco Turner from Cardinal Mooney
Yes.
coming back for another year. I think he's already won a tournament actually last week.
Mm-hmm.
So excited to see what Rocco Turner and the rest of the great golfers that we have in the area can do. Brian, before we let you go, I want to give you the chance to preview the greatest golfers starting on Friday. I know we're all excited about that event like we are every year. Preview it, some of the big names that are coming back, and what you expect out of it.
Well, I'll tell you what, they've got pretty much the same field coming back. I mean, Kluchinski, Corduple, Garrett Frank are probably, and Jonah Kashmir, they're probably the top 3 or top 4. The Porters are always good. You name it, top to bottom, there's a lot of great players in that open division. And I think, having the opportunity to host that here at Mill Creek, we'll host 300 and some plus players on Friday, and then they'll be dispersed between, 6 or 7 different courses on Saturday, with all having the hopes of making the Lake Club. I think they're about 100 players what they'll take on that final round. So, super excited to see some of the kids that played junior golf in the greatest, played high school golf, or played here locally, collegiately, now competing at that adult level. So you've had, a group of people, I think this is 13 or 14 years for them, now having worked their way up through that ladder. And it's neat to see some of the kids that were juniors participating my first year 9 years ago, and now playing in the adult version of it and playing collegiate golf and what have you. So, anytime that Mill Creek has the opportunity to give people a venue to play, especially tournament golf, we always want to do it. It goes with our Metro Parks mission statement of providing, recreational opportunities and spaces of significance, whether that be at the local, regional, state, or national level. So we're excited to be able to have been with the greatest golfers since year one, 13 plus years ago. So I think you're going to see a shootout in that. And I think, heading forward into the golf season, with Campfield's boys and girls team high school invitational on Tuesday, and the invitational with the Cardinal Classic, which is, I think I played in the first year of that, like 20 some years ago. So dating my age here, but to be able to still host that tournament, 20 plus years away is pretty unique. All the local teams play in it. So it's really an opportunity for us to really put them under a microscope to see who's got it, who doesn't. And, I know the fields in both of those events are spectacular. They draw teams from across the border in Pennsylvania. They draw teams from Columbus, the big teams that are in the top 3 at the state tournament every single year. But to be able to have them here and see what they do and how our locals compete, and they've done a good job of staying strong with, some of the coaching that's been done here is pretty cool. So we're super excited about that. And we're super excited about, the other sports here in the recreation department. We're getting ready to kick off fall flag football and fall soccer and fall cheerleading and some of the other things that we're doing up at the Wick recreation area. So I know we've got about a week or 2 left on those to sign up, and you can do that at millcreekmetroparks.org. So we're really firing on all cylinders, whether it's golf or recreation, as we head into close out the year of 2023. It's going quick.
It's going quick, and the summer heat's going quick, so we better soak it all in while we can. We're already almost halfway through August. Brian, thank you so much for joining us, and you're going to be on every Wednesday throughout the golf season. We can't wait to have this be a segment. We're going to get as many golfers and coaches on with you as possible to highlight the area's best golfers, and we can't wait to continue it, and we'll see you again real soon, bud.
I look forward to it. It's going to be a lot of fun. Super excited to be back. Super excited to see Sky. Super excited to see you, Anthony, as well.
All right, Brian, we'll see you again soon, and thanks again for the time.
Thanks.
You got it. Have a great day, guys. Thank you.
Brian Tolnar taking it with us, and he is one of the best golf gurus you will ever find, and he adds so much value to YSN's coverage of golf. I think, Scotty, you can attest to it because you've been with us for a couple of years too. Like every year, our coverage of golf gets better and better, and it's a lot to do with Brian Tolnar.
Oh, certainly. That's for sure. He knows just so much about the game and the years, the decades, as he's mentioned, he's been in it, and just so much knowledge and gives great tips, and he really enlightens people too about the state of the game in the area, and um, the really cool courses we have around here, and some of the tournaments and players that and everything you get to see as far as showcasing the sport. So he's definitely our go-to golf expert.
We're going to have a fun time all season long with Brian Tolnar. Every Wednesday during the golf season, he'll be coming on. We're going to try to get as many golfers on with him as possible. We saw that worked really well with Gary Altizer, bringing on wrestlers on Wrestling Wednesdays in the winter, bringing on wrestlers with him, and he was able to ask them so many just well-educated wrestling questions that me and Scotty could never come up with if we tried. So we're going to try to get as many golfers on throughout the season with Brian as possible and highlight as many of the area's programs and golfers. And that's going to be a fun segment throughout the fall sports season. Every Wednesday here at Running Point with Brian Tolnar, and it kicks off this week as we had him on to kind of give him his season premiere episode here this week. Scotty, how we doing today, bud?
I am good. You know, a little tired today. I feel like
Scotty.
I
Late night partying?
I was not. I don't know, a little bit sluggish today. I feel like I need a Mountain Dew or maybe a Red Bull.
Well, if we were together, I'd get you one, but we're not in the same room because know I'm never short on Mountain Dew.
Now, are you always just an original guy? Because
I am the flavor guy. Like, there aren't too many flavors that I won't drink often. They're like the voltage, the blue. I only drink if I'm gonna be at home because I don't want blue mouth, in public. But I think my favorite flavor is the Live Wire, the orange. But then Baja Blast, I get that in the summer as much as possible because it's only sold outside of Taco Bell in the summer. So I have a stockpile of Baja Blast right now in the garage that will hopefully get me through at least the fall months before it stops being sold outside of Taco Bell.
Yeah, that's Baja Blast is great.
It's amazing. It's like God's gift to humanity.
And even they got like a Baja Blast, a frozen one at Taco Bell. That's good too. But yeah, and I really like. I don't know if I've had the orange, but I really like.
Oh no, Scotty, we got to get you some Live Wire. That's one of the OGs. Like one of the first. I think like the first brand flavor they came out with was Live Wire and Code Red. So we got to get you some of that.
Yeah, I dig the Code Red, so I'm sure I would like the Live Wire.
All right, so the big thing today, Scotty, is obviously the fact that Austintown is playing in the Little League World Series today, trying to stay alive. They're in another elimination game against, I believe, the Southeast representatives right now, putting it on. Bottom of the first inning. It is 3-1. Austintown just gave up a kind of a bases loaded hit that scored a handful of runs. But Matt Hamley is arguing that the ball hit the runner between first and second. So we might see a review here to take away some of those runs because it looked like the ball was heading straight towards the second baseman and the runner kind of it hit her and it went away from her. And I guess the only other explanation was he hit a bad spot in the dirt, but it definitely changed direction. So we'll see what happens with this conversation between the umpires. I don't know if that's reviewable or what we can do about it, but as of now, Austintown is down 3-1 in the bottom of the first inning with runners on second and third and nobody out. So a little bit of a tight spot for Austintown right now. But like I said, kind of up in the air. They're trying to review some stuff. If you want to watch and you don't want to watch just my blank play-by-play, it is also on ESPN Plus. But I'm going to pull a little bit of my best Kevin Harlan impression and call the game just by watching it, not when you can see it. When he was calling, I'm calling both games. I'm sure you remember that broadcast, Scotty. It's one of the ones that went viral in football media.
Yeah, I know we were talking. I think it was last week we were talking about Kevin Hart and his was it his basketball career or
I
his,
love that dude, man.
yeah.
A lot of people don't know that he started. Well, yeah, he didn't start out, but he was the Chiefs radio guy for about 4 years in like my early days of childhood. So a lot of the highlights that I saw as a kid and the video yearbooks had Kevin Harlan's call for the Chiefs highlights. So he was a voice I grew up with. So he's always been one of my favorite broadcasters, and I'll always remember that call when he's calling the Chiefs game, but he's also calling the Dolphins game at the same time because it had implications in the playoff seeding. But I'm looking at this replay, Scotty, and there's no way they can say that ball didn't hit the runner between first and second. It went off her shin. It all of a sudden went towards the right of the second baseman. It was going right towards her. I don't think there's any way you can say that ball did not change direction. They're in review right now. I don't know exactly what that would do for the call. I mean, obviously the runner would be out, but I don't know if that would take away runs that were scored. I don't know the whole ruling on that because, like, obviously you can't just tell the runners that, hey, you have to go back to your base. And I'm looking at it again, and yeah, I mean, it's gonna go right to the second baseman, and then it just goes right to the right of it. There's no way that didn't hit the runner. Like, we might have a live Anthony Hartwig meltdown if these umpires come back
Live
and
melt.
say that ball did not touch the runner. We're gonna have some issues. We're gonna have some
You're gonna
issues.
go. You'll make Bill O'Reilly look like Barney.
So we're still awaiting these reviews are supposed to take 90 seconds, but obviously this is a big call early in this game, and it looked like there's no video that clearly shows like the ball hitting her leg, but like I said, you can see it this changed direction, and there's no other way it could have done that dramatically without hitting something, unless you're going to argue that there was such a divot in the dirt that it just went boop, like a dramatic left-hand turn out of nowhere. Like, it had to hit that runner. There's just no other way that it could have moved like that.
Yeah, I don't get it. Like, if you're able to see something.
Okay, so they're gonna say that the runner was out. I can't hear the commentator. First and third now, and they're taking one run off the board. So as of now, it looks like if ESPN got everything, because I'm obviously can't put up the audio because then we'd have the audio of ESPN blasting in the microphone. But no, they took both runs off the board, so it's 1-1 now. I'm trying to see if they can update where the base runners are. I believe there should be. Oh, they say the bases are loaded, but there shouldn't be a runner on second if that runner got hit by the ball. They're still talking about it. The home plate umpire is still having a conversation. I think now he's getting a talk with the other dugout. I don't know. I feel like the runner at second should be out, and they should not have the bases loaded. I feel like that should be like, if the ball hits the runner, are both the runner and the girl that hit the ball out, or is it just the runner's out and maybe that's a double play?
I thought it was.
It's really hard to
I
explain.
always thought it was.
This is a weird play, and without audio. Okay, so she's out. Let's see what happens here. Now the North Carolina coaches are really upset, and this is a different North Carolina team than Austintown played on Sunday. This is actually the more local team. The team that they played on Sunday was like 3 hours away from Greenville. This team is like 10 minutes away from Greenville. So let's see what it all does. It looks like the bases are still loaded as the umpire goes to behind the plate. Oh, but now he's going back to the dugout. So we're just in limbo, man. We're just in limbo trying to decide what the heck's going on. It is 1-1. We're tied. One
Yeah,
out as of now.
I always thought that meant that just the runner was out if it hit the
The
runner.
runner, if the runner is out, then there should not be a runner on second base. If she's out, but if the batter was out, then they put everybody out on the base pass of what it was, and they call the batter out. There's one out with the bases loaded, and it looks like that's going to be the call. The bases are going to be loaded with one out, and I believe the batter that hit the ball is the one that is called out, and nobody advances on the base pass. So I think everyone went back to where they were. This is like I just turned it on, so I had no idea where everybody was before this play because I didn't want to have it on with Brian on. That'd be rude. But I think everyone just went back to where they were on the base pass, and the batter was called out. If anyone is watching while they're listening, and watch the comments so I can clarify without listening to the broadcast, please do. But I believe that is the case. So. Bases loaded, one out for Austin Town's defense, tied at 1, bottom of the first. Mila Hamley in the circle again for Austin Town, 2-0 count to this hitter. So we'll keep an eye on this game as it goes forward. We're very excited for Austin Town and their chances at a Little League World Series. Yesterday, Mila Hamley struck out 12 hitters and only gave up 1 hit in their bounce back win. We were able to talk about it on Running Point because it happened at 10 a.m. yesterday. So very exciting for Austin Town to have a chance here. And that ball hit her, so that's no force in a run. So a hit by pitch puts North Carolina in the lead over Austin Town 2-1. Scotty, let's continue with what is on your mind today. After we take this commercial break, we'll see what's on your mind today and more on Running Point, brought to you as always by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austin Town.
Now you can see every school, to the smallest school, to the intermediate schools, to the schools in the outlying areas. It gives you coverage that you could just never get to before. It's something that's great to experience, and it's opened up a whole new wave of sports viewership. The possibilities are endless here at YSN. Push the envelope every day. Try something new. If it works, great. If it doesn't, well, let's try another angle, and we just keep moving forward. My name is Mike Ackelson, and my sports network is your sports network.
What can you do on over 5,000 acres? At Mill Creek Metro Parks, you can discover unique habitats and wildlife, create memorable family moments, experience history, heritage, and park programs, explore scenic landscapes, take time to relax and be well, connect with nature and each other. Come see what's new at Mill Creek Metro Parks. Plan your trip now at millcreekmetroparks.org.
Going the extra mile at Greenwood Chevrolet means taking care of our local customers.
And it's just a great feeling to put them in a vehicle and get them all excited about a new vehicle.
At the end of the day, our goal is to be someone our customers can count on.
And every day I'll go the extra mile for the community so they can trust us.
To do anything that would convenience the customer or make them feel more at home.
Realizing, number one, that we're here for them and that we're not going to go away.
That's what going the extra mile means, only at Greenwood Chevrolet.
Welcome back to Running Point on ysnlive.com, brought to you by our good friends that you just heard from on Greenwood Chevrolet in Austin Town. They're also right above our heads up there. They go the extra mile for you. We try to do the same here on this show every single day. North Carolina got a base hit up the middle on the commercial break to score a run, and they just got a little bloop single here. So they are rolling in the first inning, 5-1 now. North Carolina leads Austin Town. It's going to be one out with still runners on second and third after a bloop single into center field scores another run for them.
Yeah, doesn't look great for Austin right now, but at least it's early.
So they're going to have a lot of work to do. It looks like Coach Hamley is actually going to make a pitching change and put Annabelle Mikesell in the circle to get Mila Hamley out of there. So Mila Hamley and Annabelle Mikesell are going to flip positions, and they're going to see what that can do if Mikesell can um, stop the damage for Austin Town here. It'll be her first pitching appearance in the Little League World Series. She picked up 2 wins in the circle during the regional, so she is definitely a high-level pitcher that Austin Town can depend on. Scotty, with that being said, and as we await for further updates, what's on your mind today, bud?
Yeah, so I've been thinking a lot leading up to this show, particularly the last couple of days. There's been a lot of talk. I've had a lot of discussions. I've I've watched some videos on it as well. I've had discussions with family and friends, and since me and you are so tight, Anthony, because we're wheelchair bros and we've been at this together on Running Point for a couple years now, going strong. I wanted your thoughts on realignment in sports. I guess starting with college football, do you see it as a good thing, a bad thing, or kind of an indifferent thing? And then also on the as a two-parter to that, what do you think about realignment in general? And that could be on any level. It could be high school, sports. It could be baseball, any sport like that. What are your thoughts?
One thing I want to make clear is it's not new. I mean, people are reacting to it as if it's the first time we've ever seen conferences make switches and switch things up. And I think the difference now is things are getting a lot bigger. Like conferences are going for bigger, not just switching teams out. But we remember the ACC when they added teams like Boston College and Pitt to their crew. So it's definitely not new, but now it's a much bigger scale, and you're seeing teams that don't even make geographical sense come into these conferences. I mean, Big Ten schools out in California now, so everyone that's in this Midwest with Ohio and Pennsylvania and Indiana, Minnesota, they're all going to have to travel to the West Coast now to play conference games. That's kind of wackadoodle. But I think it's because the Pac-12 has just kind of failed as a conference, and I think I blame the Pac-12 as much as I blame the Big Ten. Everyone's kind of ganging up on these conferences that are adding teams and saying they're money hungry and they're just going for the quick grab. But don't forget the failures of the conferences that are folding. I mean, they've had plenty of chances to up their marketing and try to get opportunities for the athletes to grow as a conference, but the Pac-12 completely failed. And right now the Big 12 is in that shaky position as well. So yes, it's kind of on the conferences that are obviously trying to add teams and trying to grab money, but you also got to look at the failures of these conferences that are kind of falling apart and what that means as well. And I think Missouri's football coach actually made a really good point earlier this week on this topic. Came out and said this is a football decision, which everyone knows is. I mean, this is everything to do with how it's going to affect the football teams and what football is going to look like in these conferences. And that's, football makes the money. So you're not going to argue that point. But at the same time, it's like no one's talking about every other sport and how it's going to affect every other sport, especially he actually brought up baseball, softball, because those are the teams that have to make this travel for a lot longer than other sports do because they have to go to these places for a 3-game series. So you're talking like Ohio State's going to have to go to, for example, like UCLA for a 3-game set. They'll have to leave on a Thursday, get back on a Tuesday. still have all their commitments with school, probably get back late in the night. You're putting a lot of strain on already strained athletes in these big conferences. They're gonna now have to travel a whole lot to get to conference opponents. I mean, are we thinking about mental health and what we want to put these athletes through, especially in the sports that aren't named football? I don't know. I mean, that like I said, that's a lot of strain to put on a baseball / softball player to say you're going to be having a weekend trip every weekend cross country. Either way, either the California kids are going to come over to the Big Ten country, or Big Ten's going to have to go over to California. Either way, that is a lot to ask consistently every weekend. It's going to be weird to see how not weird. It's going to be interesting to see how athletes kind of handle this mentally, and what we're going to see from their experience being in the new conferences.
Do you think in your mind does it clearly favor the schools that have been the big boys for years, like Alabama and Ohio State,
It
Georgia?
does. And what I see, Scotty, and not to cut you off, but what I see is also like the teams like Texas, the teams like USC, UCLA, they're trying to rejuvenate, because I think they kind of feel like they're programs that are always like generationally good. Like if you ask someone that has been watching college football for 50 years and you ask them what the most, what are some of the most premier programs in the country, they'll say the Texas, they'll say UCLA, USC. They'll say you're even the Tennessees that have been really, really good back in the 80s and 90s. Teams like that are seeing the writing on the wall that their conference is bad. They're not going to get back to program greatness in this conference. Let's get to a place where we can try to put our conference back on, or our programs back on the map. So I think it's going to be really beneficial for, like you said, the big boys that don't really need any more help. They've already been big. But I think it's going to really rejuvenate some of the big programs in football that have been premier programs when you think of college football history, but it may probably been down for the last, 5-10 years. And I'm especially looking at Texas and Tennessee. Texas and USC, their moves put their programs back on the map, help out with recruiting, help out with success. And I think that, we might see a 5-10 year rejuvenation of those programs that have been down for a little bit.
Do you think it's really kind of gonna kill some of these rivalries too? Like I was listening to, I think it was Heather Dinage of ESPN, and she was talking about how she brought up Oregon and Oregon State, and she was talking about how the Oregon State players every year they look so forward to that matchup with Oregon, and knocking off Oregon. They've had some down years since the beginning of the Chip Kelly days, but they're still kind of seen as the top dog in the state there, and it's Oregon State's. It's kind of like they're like Super Bowl, if you're gonna use an NFL analogy, uses as an example. So I was just wondering, they talked about the realignment. Do you think this is gonna really hurt like rivalries and stuff like that?
Yes and no. I mean, obviously, you might not see those teams play each other as often in football. You can still go out and schedule the non-conference. I mean, Oregon doesn't have to play, Washington State Technical College. They can go and play Oregon State as a non-conference team. You see a lot of interconference rivalries. I mean, Louisville, and Kentucky play each other. They're in opposite conferences. My rivalry is an interconference rivalry. Georgia Tech. They're at SEC, ACC. So if you care about that rivalry, go schedule it. Stop blaming the realignment of the conferences. One of the things that I see though that's funny, like Texas and Texas A&M don't play in football anymore, but the rivalry is still alive because they still hate each other. Like they're still talking about each other. They still trash each other every chance they get. So the rivalry never dies. It's just not decided on the field anymore for football. And the other thing is, every other sport that's not named football, you still play each other because you have a lot more games to kind of juggle. So, yes, it might end the rivalry as far as playing on the football field every year, but those schools will still be big rivals. They'll still play each other in probably every other sport. And like I said, if you want to go play them, just go play them. Just make it an interconference rivalry. There are plenty of those that exist in the college football world. So quit whining about it. And if you want to go play them, go play them. If you don't, then hey, you're scared of having them as a non-conference opponent and you don't want to waste that opportunity. And, that'll expose you for being scared to go play your rival as a non-conference team.
Can you see? Do you see? Well, again, I guess I'll start with another quick two-parter. One, like, what is? I know you're a big Georgia Tech fan, so I assume you're not too fond of Georgia. What? But what is in your mind today the biggest rivalry in sports, or I don't know the biggest, but maybe the best, or at least a couple of your
I
favorites?
think that is always someone's answer to that question is always going to depend on where they sit geographically, right? So, like for us, we are Ohio State, Michigan, because that's what we hear all the time. It's the biggest rivalry. Everyone gets so fired up about it, so it feels like the biggest rivalry. But I think if you go from living here and then you live in North Carolina, then all of a sudden it's UNC Duke. Like we know how big that becomes as a monster. And then if you go into California, it becomes, UCLA and USC or UCLA and Stanford. And then if you go in the South, it's always, Florida State, big rivalry, huge rivalry. So if you're talking college sports, I think obviously a lot of people that you ask locally will say, well, it's Ohio State, Michigan, no doubt. And that's one of the biggest rivalries in college football. But I think it feels a lot bigger than it is here because we obviously live in the part of the country that focuses on those two teams.
And
for me, I think the biggest rivalry is the one you care about the most. I don't think it's I will always say Georgia Tech, Georgia, because it's like not too many rivalries have the other team in their fight song. Like we hate Georgia so much. To hell with Georgia is in the fight song. So there aren't too many teams that literally have their rival in their fight song, giving them a little dig in the fight song. So to me, it's that, but that's because that's what rivalry I live in. So I think that answer to the question is always going to depend on one, where you live, and two, what rivalry your fandom is a part of.
yeah, I remember getting, it was like a Christmas CD, like back when I was a kid, when CDs were a thing, and it was like these
What's a
real
CD?
it was like these real corny, like it was like these college football like anthems, and the one was about Georgia Tech, and the guy would sing, and he'd say like, "Ramblin' Record, Georgia Tech, probably my favorite sports nickname." But
Oh yeah, that's our fight song, the Ramblin' Record, Georgia Tech, a hell of an engineer.
yeah, yeah, that's a great fight song. Um, what do you think? One more thing on college football, and then I wanted to switch gears and talk about. I'm sure you saw the baseball brawl the other night between the White Sox and the Guardians. But first, before I get into that, all this talk about, realignment and the conferences. And like you said, it has been going on for years. I mean, for years ago, back in the day, Oklahoma and Nebraska was like such a big game. And now it's like Oklahoma and Oklahoma State's an even bigger game than that to them. So it's just, things constantly change, they evolve. But do you think the Notre Dame could potentially join the Pac-12?
I think Notre Dame's happy in the ACC. You know,
You think so?
outside of football, they're in the ACC for every other conference. I don't think their football will ever not be independent because there's too much money for them with their contract with NBC of being the independent school. So I think their football team has made it very clear over the last couple of opportunities to join a conference. They had that COVID year where they technically played in the ACC because there wasn't an independent avenue. They had an opportunity right after that to come out and be in the ACC, and they turned it down. So I think Notre Dame's football has made it very apparent that they have no interest in joining a conference, and I think the rest of their sports are just fine in the ACC. So no, I don't see Notre Dame hopping conferences anytime soon. I think the only teams that want to hop conferences are doing it for football, and because Notre Dame will never do it for football, they'll never do it for the other sports.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way, but I know it's been talked about lately. But I just, like you said, being an independent, I think there's just too much money, and if they're not gonna do it for football, like you said, why would they do it for the other sports?
And besides, I don't think, like you said, Pac-12. I don't know why Notre Dame would go to a sinking ship. The Pac-12 is sinking really, really fast, and no one is going to hop on board that ship.
But
That is in that tier of Notre Dame. Like
but you
you might
don't.
see some smaller schools like your Colorado States and your Utah try to jump into there so they can be a Power 5 team, but you probably won't see a Notre Dame or a new big top tier team jump into the Pac-12.
So you don't think there's a case to be made for like they could jump in and save the conference?
No one's trying to save the Pac-12. I think college football as a community and I think they've seen Pac-12 and they said, you've had your chances to save yourselves and you kind of blew it. So I don't think anyone's going to be feeling sorry for the Big 12 and throwing them lifelines. you know,
Yeah,
I mean, they're the ones that like built their own network and said they don't want to be partnered with ESPN or it's like, well, okay, well, you're not making money because no one can access your network because one, no one wants to watch football at midnight, and two, you made your network so hard to get a subscription for anyway that any Pac-12 fans in the non-West Coast almost impossible to even get your Pac-12 network. So you're just blowing
yeah,
yourself up,
yeah, they did make their own bed.
Yep.
That's for sure. But I wanted to ask you, Anthony. Um, this kind of ties in with what I mentioned a moment ago, the brawl the other night when Jose Ramirez landed a punch and left Tim Anderson seeing stars. Um, do because I feel like it's not talked about as much in high school sports on the high school level. Like because we want kids to coaches want to instill good qualities and that they're about like hard work and giving that extra effort and knowing that you're gonna fail but getting back up when you fail. But do you think like sports still needs like as much as we um it's these are team sports and you want to do things with class, do you think a certain level of animosity and maybe once in a while things getting really heated on the field, do you think some good like comes out of it? Because I mean, everybody wants to everybody wants to win. And I guess what I'm trying to say, I'm getting a little long-winded here, but sometimes I feel like teams need a negative to happen so they could kind of turn it around and turn it into a positive. Um, do you think like having a certain level of animosity but in small doses is good for sports?
I mean, what? Okay, if you need a fight to break out to gas you guys up, then your locker room is in trouble. Because if you need, like, oh man, we were down in the dumps, but Jose Ramirez just punched Tim Anderson, and now we're all gonna fight because,
No, I
yeah.
didn't
But
necessarily.
I'm just saying, like, if the Guardians are gonna say that fight woke them up, we needed that fight to wake it. Like, if you need a fight to wake you up, then you're in the wrong. You're in trouble anyway, and your locker room was in trouble. But that aside, um I mean,
I didn't
yes, I guess.
necessarily.
I mean, like, you always want this competitive. This is why sports is interesting because we really want. You need this competitive attitude, like to be great. You need this, like, I'm going to smack the crap out of you in between the lines, but then we also want athletes to stay super clean inside the line and outside the lines too. Like, we try to play both sides of the fence, and this is what I talked about yesterday, which was a great. I went on this big rant because I remember in the women's basketball season when the national championship came around, and that LSU player went up to Caitlin Clark and did one of these. Remember that?
Yeah.
It was all over national news, and people were just burying her for doing it. You know, you're classless, not representing your school. You can't. There's no place for that in sports. You know, and it wasn't a fight. It wasn't a altercation. There was no verbal fight. Even in the post game press conferences, they both were just like, "Hey, it happened. It's whatever." Went their separate ways. Nothing happened from it except for a taunt. But that was just vilified. And then I see this fight break out, and it's like glorified almost. Like there's thousands of edits on Instagram that are like, go Jose Ramirez. And
They
yes,
made
he
a
got suspended, he
T-shirt
got
out of
punished, he
it.
got slapped in the wrist. So it's not like there was no negative for him, but at the same time, it's almost like, okay, so we're okay with Jose Ramirez getting into a fight, but when a women's basketball player does this, it's classless. It's you can't do that in sports. And what I said yesterday, Scotty, I'll end this conversation with, in case you missed yesterday, you can be on either side of the fence of that conversation. I don't really care. I'm not here to tell you what your opinion should be. You can say that this is wrong and that we shouldn't have athletes that are, taunting people or being quote unquote, that unsportsmanlike conduct where you're putting someone's, but then don't do that and then say that Jose Ramirez was awesome and that fight is something that we need in sports. But then if you're on the other side, like, more power to you. If you think that, I think Jose Ramirez came out in his apology and he just said, it's not really who I am, but I'm an emotional player, and it was an emotional game, and my emotions just kind of got the best of me. And we accepted that as his statement, and I think everyone kind of said, okay, that's Jose Ramirez. He's an emotional guy. Tip the hat. Emotions got the best of him. It's not going to happen too often. We'll just let him off the hook a little bit, and we'll move on. If you're okay with that, and you're going to have that conversation, then just have it for the women's basketball player that did this too, and say, hey, she just won a national championship. That girl that she did it to, Caitlin Clark, had been the talk of women's basketball all season. She felt like she beat him handily, and she just wanted to do this real quick. So whatever side of the fence you're on, whatever conversation, whatever your opinion is, my plead with you and with everybody, I'm not saying you, Scotty, but with you as a whole, like I said yesterday, is to just be consistent with that and don't try to play both sides of the fence with different players and different women's and men's and even different sports. I mean, I think there's room for it in every sport to be a little bit emotional. And that's my TED talk. What do you think, Scotty? I think we'll have time. Nope, actually, it's time to go. It's 2:00. We have run our course. But thank you so much for tuning in today to Running Point. It was a great conversation. Want to thank Brian Tolnar for coming on and giving us his time. And like Like I said, every week throughout the golf season, we'll have Brian Toner on to share his golf wisdom. Scotty, thank you so much for coming on. And we'll see everybody again on Running Point in 2 Wednesdays. Next Wednesday, no show. I will be on vacation. But our next Wednesday show will be in 2 Wednesdays. So that's when you'll see Scotty next. I'll be back tomorrow on Running Point as well.